Hello and welcome to another Dolphin Financial Radio Show. My name is Dan Wendell, owner of the Dolphin Financial Group. Today's topic is going to be on financial advice from banks. You know, the large institutions, big brokerage houses, wirehouses, whatever you want to call them. We're going to talk about getting financial advice from those entities and the people that work there. To help me with this, and we're going to bring on some special guests. Of course, we're going to bring on my favorite co-host, Tony Shore. He's always welcome on the show. But there's going to be a new guest, one you have not seen before, and he's new to Dolphin Financial Group. I'm going to introduce him in a moment. Let me bring on Tony Shore for levity. There he is. As you can see, you know what's interesting to the listeners who watch us all the time on YouTube, watching us all the time, Tony and I are in the same room. You can't tell, but we're working together for the first time in quite a while since COVID.
Yeah,
so this is a special day.
Usually not in the same studio. You can tell we're in the same room because it has the same bland background. We don't have your usual very cool background.
I know. I'm trying to keep it real.
Yeah.
But I don't have the green screen. I don't have the cool background. I'm in Tony's mom's basement. So we are going to have some fun today because we're bringing in Chris. Chris is with us live too. Chris Kuntz is the newest member of Dolphin Financial Group. He has experience in the industry. So he's not new to the industry, but he's new to Dolphin Financial Group. And he's got some experience in a big bank. We're not going to name the names. We're not here to pick on these people or the banks or institutions, but basically we got confessions of a former banker, financial advisor. So we're gonna keep it fun. We're gonna try and talk about what's going on. But first, let me introduce Chris. Chris, you've been in the financial world. You joined Dolphin Financial Group. Without naming the name of the bank, tell us what you did, generally speaking, and what you're interested in doing going forward.
Well, thank you for the introduction. I've been in the industry for a while. I've jumped around. I've tried a lot of different formats or avenues for supporting my clients, and my time in the bank was unique. I tried it for the most part because I saw value in what I thought would be an ability to be more comprehensive in my planning. Having access to a bank gave me access to lending capabilities. It gave me access to, helping them even with the more mundane aspects of checking, savings. How are you day-to-day operating? What I learned was the focus at a bank is on banking. And as a financial advisor, they're really asking me to be a token part of their larger and more profitable business, which is lending.
And so now you're joining Dolphin Financial Group, and everyone knows we're not a bank. We are financial planners. And you are licensed to do financial planning. I am too. Tony, he's just eye candy.
I'm just
right?
a co-host.
Speaking of that, as you can see, I'm playing around with the video. So the people on YouTube, they're looking at it saying, "What's going on? Why is this happening?" It's because I'm trying to try new things, and it's not working so well. But to the audio listeners, you can't tell. We're all sitting in the same room. We're all together. But Tony's not licensed to talk financials. Only Chris and I. But Tony, I think you can offer. I'm going to tell a quick story about my experience with banks, and maybe that'll get the juices flowing here so we can ask Chris, what do we want to know?
I've got questions for Chris.
I'm not going to name the bank that I work with. I have all my business accounts, all my personal accounts there. My wife, my whole family, we use this bank. And I went in, I think it was pre-COVID, but I've been with them probably 15, 20 years. I went in the bank and I was depositing a check or something. I rarely go in banks, but I had to go in and do something. And the teller said to me, "Mr. Wendell, you have some money sitting in this account over here, not doing anything. Would you like to speak to a wealth manager about this?" And I said, "What account is that?" She's like, "It's Dolphin Wealth Management account." And I said, "That's the account with the money?" She's like, "Yes. Would you like to speak to a wealth manager about it?" I said, "Is it literally the Dolphin Wealth Management checking account?" She's like, "Yes. There's a wealth manager here you could speak to." And I was like, "No, thank you." And that was the end of it. So at that point,
didn't quite make the connection.
Didn't make the connection, but at that point, what I'm saying is I don't expect this person to be financially astute. They're a teller, and
Sure.
that's not their role. But their
Right.
role was to get me to talk to the wealth manager. And so that financial advisor that's stationed at the bank gets people like me who's going there, and the teller says, go talk to them. Was that your experience as well, doing banking, being the financial advisor go-to point in a bank?
I would acknowledge that was a large part of my day was fielding referrals from tellers and bankers. And I think it's people know more today, but there's a quota of how many referrals they need to send, and whether or not the information is going to be helpful or whether or not it's the appropriate type of referral is beside the point. They're going to send anybody and everybody they can to go talk to me, which can be a benefit to a lot of people. I hope I can be a benefit to a lot of people, whether I'm in a bank or in my new role here at Dolphin Financial. But there wasn't a lot of discovery that takes place even after the fact. When the referral would come to me as an individual, I'm very interested in learning more about my clients and what their goals and needs and wants are in both their current situation and retirement. As far as the bank was concerned, they had a portfolio of products that they were interested in offering. And in a lot of cases, somebody has a savings account. I'll give you my own personal example. For my wife, they don't know who my wife is or who she's married to, and she went into, again, a bank. Had just recently deposited a pretty decent sum of money and expressed some interest in paying for her kid's college with it. And rather than take too much time discussing what else my wife had invested in, what else her goals are, what her income was, and what other options there are out there to fund for college. Because, interestingly enough, here in Florida, a lot of people know there's Florida prepaid. But that doesn't profit the bank. So very quickly, my wife found herself being suggested that she put a six-figure sum into a 529 plan immediately with no discussion. Now,
Wow.
that's obviously not the way I would do things, but that is definitely wasn't a surprise to me when my wife came home and told me her story at the bank for the day.
Wow.
So similar. I feel like we're bashing the banks. That's not my goal here. I just want to kind of bring out the idea that there are different types of financial advisors with different portfolios, different tactics, different areas of expertise, and also different objectives. And in the case of what you were doing at a bank, your objective was to satisfy the bank's customers. And you said it in the beginning, the ultimate goal is to improve their banking services, right?
Yes.
Or their,
Sure, and they're in it for the profit, and so they're looking at things. But it sounds like they were offering, in both cases, They have a limited offering. When your experience when you were working with the bank, they had their set portfolios and things that you were supposed to put the clients in, and that's a disadvantage over an independent financial advisor, I would assume. Just to clarify for our listeners, we're talking about the big box banks and national financial chains that you see, these national chains that call themselves financial advisors, or the banks, either way, they usually have their parent companies and they have to put you in certain portfolios, whereas an independent financial advisor, Dan and Chris, doesn't have to do that. You can look at all the options out there. Is that correct?
I like to use the term independent versus captive. And this is also used in the insurance agency world. As an example, if you go to get homeowners insurance, you can go to a name brand and you could say, I want homeowners insurance. What are they going to offer you? They're going to offer you their name brand company's insurance.
Yeah.
They're not going to say, well, you can get it cheaper if you go over with this guy. So I think banks kind of fall on that. Not all do. But you're kind of focused. You're hoping that you have an advisor in the bank that's going to kind of be independently focused. Was that your experience, Chris? Would you say that you had that level of independence, or were you more captive?
I would describe myself. It was a hybrid. There was definitely incentive to work with particular products. There's definitely products I could not work with, and for the most part, I come back to the fact that at the end of the day, I was able to, mostly offer people alternatives to money that had accumulated in either CDs or savings accounts, and to try and plan holistically was always, I was arm wrestling with my employer. I was describing to you earlier some experiences I had at the particular big box bank that I was working at, where they had opportunities to invest in interesting investments, real estate, with what they love, lending, and the clients had trust in me and had worked with me and had really spent time with me describing what their wants, needs, goals are. But at the end of the day, again, the bank isn't so much interested in all of that as they are in what business they can get done, and oftentimes would attempt to kind of shoulder me out of the conversation because they wanted their banker more involved than their again, token financial advisor. It really, to call myself a financial advisor, I was really a person offering mutual funds and managed money opportunities, and beyond that, their private banker or their relationship manager was the person that they wanted to kind of quarterback with more of a bank perspective, we'll say.
Well, the idea of having different forces pulling, the specialist in this, you're changing that now. So we have specialties. We focus on retirement planning, but we're not necessarily focused on doing refinances. But if someone wants to do a reverse mortgage, or if someone wants to talk about Medicare, or if someone wants to talk about Social Security, we're going to have that conversation. What did you used to do when people asked about that? Like, Tony, you made the point that they had this suite of products. I'm saying also that they also have their suite of things that they can talk about.
Sure. So, for example, I have a question for you, Chris, regarding that, Dan, and that is, I know that a lot of seniors, and part of retirement and financial planning is maximizing your Social Security, when to file, Medicare, how to cover health care. So when you're investing, you're mainly investing for retirement typically. That's what people use their investment funds for, is when they retire. So did you get questions about those things, or did you help people with those things? Was that something the bank offered via their financial advisors, or?
At the end of the day, there was a suite of products we could talk about, and then there was everything else that was of no interest to the bank. I find, sitting down with Dan, hearing how he's approached his clients, it's what attracted me to Dolphin Financial. We're able to discuss Social Security and how to maximize Social Security. We're able to discuss those big decisions when it comes time to select your Medicare options. These things were not mentioned, discussed. There was no education offered to anybody that is a bank client. There's no business in it at the bank, and therefore there's no interest in it.
Well, that's the thing. It's the motivation comes down to money, right? So how are you compensated? Well, if I sold a CD or a product, or if I may have gotten a little piece of the action if I recommended a refi and maybe the bank got a loan, and But the bottom line is you're a lot of these institutions, you got to look at how they get paid. And are they fiduciaries? And now you're in an environment where you're a fiduciary. You have to act in their best interest. And so if they say, I need help with Social Security, we can't just say. In fact, I'll give you an example. I had a client come to me, a prospect. They weren't a client. They came and said, I'm interested in Social Security. And I said, well, what are you thinking now? And they said, well, we're thinking about doing this and this. And I asked my current advisor, and he said, he's just said, take it at 62 or something like that. And they said, well, we want a little bit more than that. And he's like, well, that's not my forte. I don't know anything about Social Security. Go talk to someone. And when you find out, let me know, because I'm turning 62 as well. And I want to know what to do. And I thought to myself, how can that happen? But it can happen in an environment where you're not compensated to give advice. You're compensated to sell a product. And that's going to be a new situation for you, is that you have all this knowledge on what people should be doing and planning, and now you're actually going to be charging people for that advice, and it's going to open the world to you. And I want people that are listening to know it's not bad. Chris said it, getting advice. People need help, right? Yeah. The more people get help, the better. But just, you need to be aware of who's giving you the advice and how they are compensated, and are they acting in your best interest? Are they a fiduciary? Really, that's the number one question I think people should be asking. And I don't know if all banks have that fiduciary requirement or not. So when people asked you about Social Security, what could you do? What did you want to do, and then what could you do?
I think the effort and the interest was in helping them answer those questions, but there was no time or benefit to doing so. And I think a lot of times clients of the bank that I had then, they didn't even consider asking, because they kind of realized they're not going to get a holistic plan from me in that type of setting. It's exciting, and what I was attracted to coming to you, Dan, and Dolphin Financial, was the fact that not only are you engaged in helping your clients with all facets of their retirement and financial lives, but also you have the education in the background to help me improve and help the clients that I serve better. Because the thing I think oftentimes is the kind of education I got at the bank, because they had educational opportunities, but they were coming from mutual fund wholesalers, and that is who came in and educated us on their mutual funds and what the goals of their funds were. What I've already seen here is that there's education on everything when it comes to opportunities with you and what we can do for our clients. Sitting down and learning, what are the 20,000 different ways that we can help our clients take Social Security when they make those decisions? What are the different options when they have to make that big decision on Medicare? How will all that impact their retirement income and what they have left over to use for the things they want to do in retirement versus what they have to pay for, what they have to do to make ends meet? How do we maximize that opportunity for them, which is that's never the conversation I had previously.
Well, I'm excited. I think you're going to add some great value to it. Each week we talk about different stuff, and you're going to bring a new perspective. A lot of the times I am doing a lot of education. Just having Tony on the show, I have to basically educate him on every topic. Right?
I'm going to mute your mic. Dan's mic is now muted. Nothing but noise over here, Dan.
So I'm going to let Tony ask a question, but before I do, just a final thought. Final question for you, Chris. Welcome to Dolphin Financial Group, by the way. The question I have is, if you could give advice to people that are currently working in a large company or basically anywhere, getting financial advice from somebody, what would you tell them to do or say to their advisor now to make sure that they're getting the advice that they deserve?
Well, I mean, I think that's a tough question, but an important one. And I think what we've hit on today are some soft questions to share or lob to your current advisor, and just see how they respond. There's no specific way to tell if you're getting a complete financial plan if you only talk to one advisor. But if you ask them about Social Security and they respond dismissively, that's a signal. I think a more telling approach is to ask for that second opinion. And you can't get a second opinion from your current advisor. You have to, it's like going to the doctor. You can hear from your doctor, but if you want a second opinion, you can't just set a second appointment. You got to find another doctor.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think, what I see, especially with some of the big box national chains and financial chains and banks and institutions, I just feel like I know Dan works really hard to have a personal connection with his client and a relationship and an ongoing relationship. How is that at banks? I mean, I guess it depends on the situation or the person, but did you feel like the bank wanted a personal relationship with their clients, or was it just another piece of business? I mean, how did you feel when you were there?
So, and I think this is a great question. The goal of the bank is to have a relationship with their clients. I certainly, on a personal level, knew my clients.
That's good.
Knew who their kids were. Knew a lot about them because it's important to me. And that is why, again, I find myself where I'm at today.
Sure.
On an institutional level, I think the banks have a tough time having that type of relationship.
Sure.
They have,
even if they want to.
It's just it's a challenge. It's your advisor is a very important choice you make.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about an advisor who chooses to run their business themselves, their way, in order to give the very best they can to their clients. And I would certainly identify agents, advisors in a big box setting as, they're seeking something there. There's a payoff there. It might have a lot to do with people walk in the door and they don't have to make a lot of decisions and make choices themselves.
Sure.
Well, I appreciate the coming on the show and giving us this insight. I was going to call this Confessions of a Financial Planner at a Bank, but I want to reiterate, we're not bashing the banks. We need more people to get financial advice. They don't teach it in school, but we want you to think twice about who's giving it to you.
Yeah.
Even if you are working with us, go get a second opinion just to keep us in check. And talk to people about financial, and don't rely on one source at all times. That's what we're here for. So we're here to give second opinions. I'm looking forward to it. Chris, you're going to be seeing a lot more of. He's got some kids. I think you got two kids, right?
2 kids, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they're younger than mine. So this is going to be great. So we got more ammunition for the outro. When you get tired, I'm sure the listeners and the viewers are tired of hearing my two twins on the outro. I'm going to bring them right in right now because we have to do it. But maybe we'll switch things up and Chris's kids will be on there next.
That'll be fun.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited that Chris is going to be a part of the team, your team at Dolphin Financial, and I think you're going to bring a lot to the show as well each week. So that's awesome.
Thanks for a good show, and we'll tune in next week and enjoy the rest of your day,
All
everybody.
matters discussed in today's show are for informational purposes only.
This show is not investment advice.
Dan Riddle nor Dolphin Financial Group are affiliated or endorsed by any government agency.
Investment advisory services are offered through Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc., a registered investment advisor in the state of Florida.
Insurance products and services are offered through Dolphin Insurance, Inc.
Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc. and Dolphin Insurance, Inc. are affiliated companies doing businesses as Dolphin Financial Group.
You should talk to someone at Dolphin Financial Group before implementing any of these strategies or ideas.